Yeah. Welcome, friends. We're here for another Sunday teaching. But today's a special day because this is the last Sunday in the month of September, and the last Sunday of every month is our day of observance and retreat. So it's a special day that we all gather and we do a retreat throughout the day. We do meditations, we do some Sangha chat, we do some teachings, and it's just a day to spend with the Sangha in study and practice and rejuvenate ourselves. And Lord knows we deserve at least one day break throughout the month for a day just to ourselves and our practice. In today's teaching, I wanted to teach a little bit about patience. But before I get into that, I'd like to start by talking about impatience, because I think that's a topic that's closer to our hearts. Um, so I was doing some insight meditation the other day, and I seemed to have a bit of a revelation on this, and I wanted to share it. We talked about this before. Sometimes in insight meditation, we have an experience that I call a flash of insight, or I'll just call it a flash. And what happens is it's a strange thing where it seems like in just a moment, we get a glimpse into a great deal of information. It just all comes to us really quickly. And it's quite an extraordinary thing that happens. It happens every now and then for me. And it happened with this topic of patience that came to me. So, and I just realized that there's so much more to patience and impatience than we usually hear about and we usually talk about. Of course, patience is a big topic in Buddhism, but even still, I don't think it's talked about enough. And I wanted to share some of my thoughts on it. So when we talk about impatience, and how does impatience arise for most of us? Well, first things first, one of the reasons why we all have problems meditating is not because we have busy minds. That's usually what we tell ourselves. I can't meditate because I have a very busy mind, or I can't meditate because I feel very emotional, or I don't have the right situation. It's not true. That's all a side effect. We have problems meditating because we're impatient, right? That busy mind, we all know deep inside that if we sit long enough and we take some deep breaths, that we can work with that mind. It's just a question, do we have the patience to do so? And I think this is true in just about all of our practices. The reasons we don't do all the things we want to do is often because we're simply impatient. Why we can't meditate. It's another aspect. I think that impatience is the reason most of us quarrel with one another. So we're having a conversation with someone else has a different opinion. We can be patient for a while, but it's when we become impatient is when we start to quarrel. So I think that so much of the contention in the world is due to the human limitation of impatience, that we simply don't really have enough patience. It's also the reason why we give up with things, right? So say you want to play guitar, you want to learn another language, or most of the time what happens is we reach a point where we just get impatient. We don't want to keep putting in that kind of effort, and we just stop, because the great things in life take a great deal of patience. Playing a musical instrument takes an enormous amount of patience to learn all those scales, to learn how to draw or paint, to learn how to cook, to learn another language. It takes an extraordinary amount of patience. We don't necessarily look at it like that, though, do we? We just simply say, oh, I couldn't do it, or we'll say I didn't have enough time. But chances are, if you look at it deep enough, you'll find that you actually you just didn't have quite the patience for it. I think our impatience is also the reason why we're so judgmental and denigrating to ourselves and others, that we become impatient with ourselves and our own qualities or our limitations. We look at our own maybe our own laziness or our own greed or hatred or whatever qualities we have that we're not particularly fond of. But I think when we get frustrated, that frustration arises from our impatience. And I think that's one of the reasons we're so hard on ourselves, is simply because we lose patience for ourselves and others. I'm definitely to blame on this one. I find that when I become angry with others, when I become irritated with others, it is the point of when I lose patience. Before that, I'm fine. As soon as I lose patience, that is irritation. That defines that state. And usually, this impatience arises from an untruth we tell or convince ourselves of. So I might be trying to do something new, and I'll tell myself something like, I just can't do it, or I'm just not, I don't have the mental ability to do that, or I don't have the skill, or I don't have the time to do something. But what I find for myself is that when I run out of patience, I'll create or forge a lie, an untruth, and convince myself that that's the reason why I'm not able to do that thing. And opposite of that is that if I had enough patience to continue, like say playing guitar, I tried a couple times. I never had the patience to learn guitar, and but I convinced myself of another reason. It wasn't that I was impatient. It was that I didn't have the time, or whatever reason we have. But I find that oftentimes it's an untruth that we convince ourselves of. Impatience is the source of our shortcomings and our failures. When we look at them deeply, we can have a lot of excuses for why we didn't finish something, why we didn't accomplish something, why we weren't successful at something. But I think a great deal of the time, you might find that it's simply because we were impatient and we reached a point where we convinced ourselves that we had to stop for other reasons. So looking back at my life, I think about all the things that I didn't finish. I think about things that I told myself I wasn't good at and stopped doing, things that I failed at. And if I look back honestly, I think I can always see that it was more about my impatience with what I was doing than anything else. That if I persevered, there's a good chance I could have done those things. Of course, there's always times that we can't, right? I clearly can't run and become president of the United States. We do have limitations, but within those limitations, there's still a great deal that we're more capable of than we give ourselves credit for. I think school has a lot to do with that, right? I think a lot of people will go to school for things, and maybe we set our sights very high. We think we're going to be Wall Street tycoons, or we're going to be surgeons, and a lot of times people will sell themselves short, and they end up with a lesser degree. And again, I think it's impatience with their studies with themselves. When we don't believe in ourselves, it's kind of a form of impatience. So impatience is also, I believe, one of the sources of our busyness, our speediness, our exaggerated sense of immediacy and importance, which of course we've often talked about, are the real sources of samsara, the real sources of our suffering. and I think it's true. So, getting back to patience, I like the definition of patience as good-natured tolerance to the undesirable. So it's interesting, and I got this online on one of the dictionary websites, But I liked the aspect of good-natured tolerance, because patience isn't just tolerating something in a bad mood or in a foul mood. Patience has that aspect of doing it in a good-natured way, right? Being patient is not letting your emotions slip into negativity, and I thought that was really perfect, and especially as we see it in Buddhism. Of course, for those that have taken Bodhisattva vows, our practice and training in the 6 perfections, the third of the perfections is, of course, patience. And again, it should be this idea of good-natured patience. Patience can be further defined as tolerance, acceptance, non-attachment, non-reaction, and endurance. So endurance is, I guess, similar to tolerance, where we can endure something longer, again, in a good-natured way, trying to do it with a positive attitude. Buddhism looks at patience in a different way. First of all, Buddhism considers patience as one of the most important and versatile of all the antidotes. However, in Buddhism, patience is more akin to non-action. So when we see it in the scriptures, they're really talking about non-action, where one is advised to become a block of wood. I remember all my studies, they were always talking about when you're insulted, when something's disturbing to your mind, when you're dealing with disturbing stimuli, the antidote is to become a block of wood, and they mean just control yourself. Don't let any reaction come out of you. No action, no reaction. Meaning that in Buddhism, patience pertains to non-reaction. So when we talk about non-reactivity, which is, I think, the modern kind of take on this idea of non-action, we're talking about non-reactivity. We're talking about gaining control over the mechanism of reactivity. But it's important to know that reactivity is on a spectrum, that there is acceptable and unacceptable or uncontrollable forms of reactivity. In most cases, when we talk about reactivity, clearly we're talking about emotional overreactivity. Because when we talk about the spectrum of reactivity, we rarely have to worry about our good qualities. We don't have to worry about our compassion being reactive, or our care for others, our generosity. In fact, when we talk about the Bodhisattva and the Bodhisattva path, we were talking about how the Bodhisattva, his intention is much different than our own. It's spontaneous. It's reactive, right? There's not a lot of thinking that goes on. He simply attends to what needs to be attending. When someone's in need, his compassion is instant and reactive. And it happens automatically. He springs to action. He takes care of it. He's not thinking about what kind of reward he gets from it. He's just benefiting. So reactivity isn't the problem. It's our overreactivity or our uncontrollable reactivity. This kind of reactivity, and oftentimes this is related to our more negative qualities, because clearly these are the qualities that we're trying to work with and control. But overreactivity can arise most of the time instantaneously, right? Upon experiencing some kind of stimuli, even before we have time to think about it, happening so quickly that we have no time to exercise good sense, good judgment, self-control. This thereby robs us of the opportunity to respond wisely and skillfully. This emotional reactivity is often instinctual and impulsive, arising before we are ever even aware of it. And of course, anger is the best example, right? For people, especially people that have problems with anger, oftentimes they're in the heat of anger even before they were aware that it was coming on. And the best method for working with this kind of emotional overreactivity is the practice of presence and objective distance, which we've studied in our 10-week meditation program and our skillful living program as well. So I won't go into a deep explanation here, but presence is the idea of being present within the present moment. Learning how to, whenever stimuli that's difficult to work with or uncomfortable, undesirable arises, we focus directly onto our breath or our body. This is one of the easiest ways to become present. We take a breath. We try to abide in the stillness of the present moment and watch our emotions and try to have a little space between the stimuli and the reaction. We gain a little bit of control in this place. And we also try to add an objective distance. An objective distance, of course, is just a slight pushing away from the stimuli or reality itself. Just realizing that it's happening, but just taking a step back from it. And that small space between yourself and the stimuli gives us just enough time for some wisdom and skill to come in, for us to notice it and to be able to watch for that overreactivity to arise and take a breath into it and reduce it, or possibly even eliminate it. So presence and being present before stimuli happens is ideal if one is able to control that or to maintain that. So that's the first aspect of working with overreactivity. And of course, patience. So when we're present within the present moment and we learn how to apply some objective distance to reality and not be so close to reality. So we often say our faces are usually smashed up against the window glass of reality with no time or no space to breathe or make good decisions or apply reason. And so by just giving ourselves a little space between ourselves and reality, you can imagine how that automatically creates a sense of patience, right? That distance itself. So this is how we begin applying that. Does anyone have any questions so far? Was I pretty clear about that? Can you see that happening in your own life? Are there any other benefits or applications of patience that I haven't addressed? Very good. Okay. Can you see how so many of our disappointments, our failures, and our suffering are due to our lack of patience? Can you think back in times of your life where quite possibly, if you weren't impatient with yourself, you could have achieved something a little more than you did? Huh? Boy, I can. Lynn?
This is such an issue for me that I meditate on it daily. I think one of the things that really sets me off, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and driving And when I'm out on the road with people who are always trying to cut me off, get in front of me, it's whatever they tend to do, has a tendency to just set me off for some reason. And I struggle with patience with other drivers, among other things, but that is one that just comes up almost every day for me.
Do you have a method for creating more patience?
I try to do like a 16-second breathing. So breathing in and holding for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, and resting for 4 seconds. So I usually just start practicing breathing in the car.
Yeah, very good. And that's what I would recommend as well, is at least 3 breaths or the 16 breaths. That's exactly right. The other thing is just understanding the benefits of patience. We talked before in our first teaching on actualization and how clarity is the secret to actuating the qualities that we're looking for. And with patience, it's very true. If you're very aware of the damage that impatience causes, and you really understand all those benefits that come from patience, that's the first step to really developing a good level of patience. Just being aware that it's something that you want to cultivate, right? And then in your life, as you practice it, just like everything else, we get better at it. So the Tibetans would say, whenever those things happen, become a block of wood, Lynn. But hopefully you'll still steer your car. But I always thought that was kind of limited. That was a limited view. Just become a block of wood, don't react. There has to be something a bit more to it. But very good. David, you want to chime in?
Yeah, it was just what Lynn said made me realize that there's different people react with impatience to very different stimuli. I'm an impatient person. I would regard myself as a very impatient person, but I'm totally patient with cars. You know, if somebody's tailgating me or cuts me off, so. And yet, no way could I call myself a patient person. So just some things that just don't irritate me that irritate others, and vice versa.
Isn't it true? Some people are really patient with kids. Some people are patient with technology, and others aren't. But impatience is akin to irritability and anger. And of course, anger, we think about it as being an obstacle to what we desire. And impatience is the same. But impatience is the point where we give up tolerating it, right? We give up tolerating it and we say, oh, that's it. Now they've crossed the line. That's when we lose our patience for something. But if we can just take a couple breaths and be patient a little while longer, oftentimes I think it greatly benefits our lives. Do you think you can correct this in your lives? Do you think you can cultivate patience? And do you think it would make a bigger impact on your life? Is it something doable for everybody? Does it seem like a goal that we can all have and that we can benefit our lives? Do you see the benefits of it? Before in our, Lynn, please.
I think one of the things that I try to remember to try to overcome this is that I recognize it's not good for my blood pressure. And so, because I mean, obviously it raises my blood pressure. So I try to keep that in mind of how it's affecting me physically and put that in the forefront. This is really stupid to do that. First of all, it's childish, but secondly, it's stupid because it's affecting my blood pressure. So I don't want that to happen. So I need to just take the deep breaths and then calm myself down.
Yeah, excellent. That's right. Yeah. You know, before we were talking about our goals of meditation, and we were imagining ourselves at the peak level of success in our meditation. And we were talking about how that state would be we see ourselves as being quite equanimous. And I would say that let's use that state, and you could also say patience, right? That equanimous state is the highest level of patience, right? And patience comes in when we learn to accept the world as it is, right? Because there are qualities that make patience easier. So if we can accept the world around us, and we accept the world by understanding the world. When people are acting crazy and you go, yeah, those are human beings, that's what human beings do, and we understand the behavior, then it makes it a lot easier to be patient with the behavior, right? Oh, that's lovely. So when we talk about patience, I think the greatest practice of cultivating patience and reducing our over-emotional reactivity, which are related to one another, right? It's when we lose patience that our over-emotional reactivity kicks in, and it's kind of that's the light switch between the two. As soon as our patience is gone, that's when our emotional reactivity takes over. And of course, the great practice for controlling this is through meditation and mindfulness, which we've been sharing. And it's through meditation and mindfulness that we start to recognize that at first we see it as that space between thoughts, right? When you first start to meditate, it doesn't seem like there's any space whatsoever between our thoughts as we sit and meditate. It's just a hamster on a wheel, spinning and spinning and spinning. And then slowly we start to see that space between thoughts, and we slowly learn to cultivate it and to abide in that space of stillness, right? And then you can start applying that space to other things that can also be the space between our stimuli and reactions. So it's never said, but I think that meditation is one of the profound practices for cultivating patience. I'm often surprised that no one ever comments on that for us to sit with no entertainment on our cushions when there's all kinds of fun stuff to be doing, but instead we decide to sit still and do absolutely nothing. Can you imagine a situation that requires more patience? And if that's true, what now becomes the greatest obstacle to meditation? You follow the logic? Patience becomes, or impatience becomes, the biggest obstacle to meditation. I can't do this, my mind's too busy. My legs are sore, my back's aching, I am busy, I got stuff to do. There's a good program on Netflix. And so for myself, I realized that I do believe impatience is one of the things I'm having the most trouble with in my meditation. Never occurred to me before. I knew that patience was an aspect of it, but it never occurred to me that how much of a problem I was having with that. Because it doesn't sound so hard, to sit still and quiet and not do anything. It's not like we're trying to leap over a towering building or something, running a marathon, or we're riding bicycles like Ravi for 600 kilometers. I mean, we're just sitting on a cushion or a chair. If your legs are, you sit in a chair. But isn't it funny how we just can't sit in a chair doing nothing? And so anxiety's there, clearly, and laxity's there. But I think the real problem is that we become impatient. Yeah? And so to cultivate a great meditation practice, I believe we have to cultivate profound level of patience. Yoli?
I find that that's true for me when I find myself feeling impatient during meditation. It's usually associated with time. I'm thinking about my day and how much time I have. As much as I enjoy my meditation, time is always kind of going on in the background, thinking about my busy day. And so that's when I lose, I become impatient and become distracted.
I think that's true for most of us. And I still think that David really hit it on the head that we all have different things that we're impatient about. Maybe with you, maybe it's more related to time. Others, it might be boredom. So we all can have different things that trigger our impatience. But nevertheless, I think we all have to take a hard look at our level of patience and our problem with impatience and see how much that has to do with our practice. For me, it's been a big deal. It was a great insight into my own practice and just another piece of the puzzle to fall in. And so I realized that, and I've been countering it with bringing more joy into my practice. That I'm a big proponent of joy in meditation, and I always bring it in. It's part of our checklist. But then I realized, well, there's joy, and then there's joy. And I realized that I needed a stronger cultivation of joy to really help my meditation. And that's giving me more patience. So I recommend that to all of you as well. But this week, let's take a look at patience in our practice. We'll do some meditation on it throughout the week. And I think we might have some great insights into it. Oh, and Marcus says, I often think in meditation when the matter of time comes in that if I can sit on Instagram for 20 minutes scrolling through things, doesn't it matter how much to me, then I can take that time and meditate instead. You can, and why don't we? And why is it so much harder to meditate than to scroll? Because our minds like to be busy, right? Our minds are just like children. We want to be entertained. Isn't it something when you see new parents, their whole life is just about entertaining the child, right? Like little babies. If they're not sleeping, they have to be entertained all the time. Well, that mind stays with us. But we can train ourselves to be more patient. So what we're actually doing in meditation is we're training ourselves to be patient. And then we see that as the quality of equanimity. Oh, thank you, Marcus. That's lovely. So does anyone have any questions or comments? Would you like to add to the conversation? I'll sit here patiently because it's my new practice. Darcy.
I sent a text thing, but I was just saying that with the meditation has given me more patience. And I actually look forward to meditation and just taking that time away from everything and to learn more. And then also the studies and the teachings have really added to that. I think they work hand in hand, definitely.
I do too. I think meditation leads to patience, and being more patient leads to more productive meditation. Neil?
During my insight meditation on patience, a couple of questions came up. Why have I got more patience for certain things and less for other? And I thought, is it to do with age? I have more patience for younger people, less for teenagers, more for adults, more for elderly people. And it weren't really that. It was more, I lose patience when my judgments and expectations aren't met. And if I keep making judgments and expectations, I'll keep losing my patience. I really should be patient the same amount, no matter whether it's a child, an adult, an elderly person, or whatever situation I'm in. So that's how my insight meditation went.
Oh, it's lovely. But the fact is that we're impatient to different degrees according to the importance of things. Like I think so much with age, being impatient with young people or older people, a lot of it has to do with respect and how we're treated. Younger people, sometimes we lose respect. We get impatient because we might not feel we're being addressed in the right way. Sometimes we understand older people are becoming less capable and we're more compassionate towards them. So I think it's complex. I think there's a lot of reasons that we lose our patience. And also when there's obstacles to what we desire. So I agree with you, our expectations and all these things, but why we're impatient or why we're irritable is quite complex. It changes for every object and it's different for every person. Some people are more patient than others. Some people are more angry than others. Some people are more greedy than others. So it's just one more of our shared human limitations that we all have to work with. The importance of today's teaching is to point out the real benefits of patience. I don't think it's addressed enough within Buddhism. It's lovely that it's there in the 6 paramitas for Bodhisattva, the 6, because that's number 3. We have generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. But in the Theravada tradition, it's not mentioned very much. So I'd like everybody to focus a bit more on it. Anyone else? David.
Just a wee illustration that I had of my impatience when we were doing the meditation on patience earlier. I found myself getting impatient with the fact that I wasn't getting a good grasp of the patience in the meditation. So I managed to generate impatience in a patience meditation.
Oh, so funny. It's so true, isn't it? Yeah, and sometimes we find ourselves being impatient of the silliest things. And we seem to be less patient as we get older, don't we? A lot of people, we say getting grouchy, when we get a bit older. And I think maybe like Neil was saying, we have more expectations when we're older. When we're young, maybe we're more open. No, I take that back. Young people are terribly impatient. What am I talking about, aren't they? Oh, teenagers. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I think I just take that whole, I'm going to have to edit this video. I take that whole thing back.
I was
just thinking
when I was a teen. I had no patience whatsoever.
It's just different impatience, isn't it? That's right. And little children are terribly impatient. I want that and I want it now. Yeah. But I think patience is akin to that quality of equanimity we're talking about. When someone is equanimous, patience is just a given. It's just a natural quality that arises from that. But especially if we cultivate patience towards ourselves, I think we're really hard on ourselves. We don't give ourselves enough credit. We need to be patient with ourselves and in what we do. Be patient in your meditation practice. Let the results come when they come. Yeah. Be kind to ourselves. Darcy?
When we were meditating, the one thing that kept coming back around in my head was I would just envision the words in due time, because lovely. A lot of it is something that's not happening fast enough. Like getting the house, I have to tell myself it'll happen in due time, so that was something that was recurring.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so related to time, isn't it? It's something and space. I become impatient when somebody's talking too much and I can't join in a conversation. I can become impatient, yeah. Yeah, so I thought it was a topic worth talking about. And again, it kind of popped into my head during meditation, and I seem to get great insight into it. I hope I was able to share that, and you have a little insight into what I experienced. So now I have a kind of a different mindset when I'm meditating. Now I'm realizing that what I'm really working with on a daily basis is this idea of patience. Miss Catherine.
I get impatient if I'm grasping at something. The more I want it, or the more I'm averse to it, the more impatient I get. And if I can hold it a bit more lightly, then my patience naturally calms or gets better.
It's true. It's true. You know, patience arises when there's an obstacle of what we want, or that what we don't want is there and coming. So the less we grasp at things and the less desire we have, then clearly our patience is reduced. Thank you. I agree with that completely. But I think it needs to be front and center in our practice. Mike?
Yeah, I was thinking earlier that I know we touched on this in different ways, but it seems to me that patience sometimes is an expression of generosity when you're waiting on someone else, and the manner in which you do that can express generosity at the same time. So.
Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. In fact, I believe I was supposed to say that during the teaching. You're right. It's an amazing generosity to just take a breath. Maybe so you're with somebody, like for me, if I'm with somebody who's dominating the conversation, to just, realize that it's something they need and just to let them have that, to be patient and wait. It's an incredible form of generosity. Thank you. Especially with our loved ones, our children, our parents. Oh, being patient with our parents, listening to your mom talk about our television shows or whatever it may be. We know it's meaningful to them. We're patient. Yeah, it's a truly beautiful thing. Any other comments or questions before we end? Okay, so in closing, this Sunday coming up, we'll begin our 10-week meditation program, which we're super excited to be starting. We have, I think most of you know that our 10-week meditation program is actually two practices. There's one, the meditation program, and then there's a meditation instructor program that happens together. And our meditation instructors in training will teach the class throughout the week. So it's a very exciting thing that we do. I'm going to be uploading the material for it. If you'd like, you can download our text called Meditation and Mindfulness Basics from our website. It's a short text. It's about 70 pages, but we're asking everybody to read that before the program starts. It gives us a good explanation of meditation and mindfulness. Through the course of the practice of the 10-week meditation program, we're going to learn all of the major forms of meditation. And by the time we're done, you'll have a really great idea of what meditation is in all the different forms, and get to practice them all. We're going to practice them all together throughout the week. So whether you're a beginner or you're an experienced meditator, this is a great practice for cultivating some good techniques in meditation. If you haven't signed up, please go to our website and do so. And if you can, please get the word out there that our program is starting. I've been trying to promote it as best I can, but I could certainly use some help. If you can post it on your social media and things like that. You can take the graphics from our social media, you can save them to your computer and just repost it. Excuse me. The following Saturday, we'll be starting our Sutra study program. And I'll be uploading the details of that this week. And so everyone's welcome to join that as well. I'd like to remind everybody that I'm just a click away if you need anything for help and support, if you have any questions about your practice. And let's end today's class with our altruistic prayer. May all be healthy, may all be prosperous, may all be well. May all be present, free of past regret and future worry. May all abide in constant appreciation, which is the source of great joy and contentment. May all realize their true nature and the true nature of reality, which is awakening. Thanks everybody for coming, and remember that the SBT community was created for one purpose and one purpose only, to support you, the practitioner. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to help you on your path to awakening. During our retreat today, our next event will be our Purification Ceremony, which will be at 7 o'clock or 1900 UTC time. And that's going to be in about an hour from now. So, yeah, an hour from now. Great. So I hope to see you there. Everyone's welcome to come to the Purification Ceremony. It's a lovely event. So I hope to see you all there. And Catherine posted, what is that, Catherine?
It's the link to the meditation and mindfulness based document.
Great. Yeah, so that's there, or you can go to the website and download it. So that's great. Thanks everybody for joining me. Great to see you. Let's all practice our patience this week and get some insight into it. You know, by watching our patience, we learn a lot about it. We learn where we need more patience and where we're pretty good at it. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
See you in about an hour.
Thank you, Tharpa.
You're welcome.